Welcome to the Mobile Ecosystem Forum podcast, Perspectives in Mobile. The podcast where we look into the most pressing issues, trends, and innovation shaping the mobile landscape today. In this special series, we look at how companies are managing change in the digital era. This series is supported by Netnumber.
Hello everyone and welcome to Perspective, Changes in Telecom, a series of interviews sponsored by Netnumber. This is a special series of our weekly catch-up, which by now you probably remember us as Perspectives, where we talk of how different people different leaders in telecom and the mobile world look at what's happening around us. And the different views are still what we're talking about. But from these episodes and for another 6, we will explore the vital role of change in not just shaping the industry we live, not just in the life of all of us consumers and enterprises, but how telecom itself has to change. And we're doing these with the help of a Netnumber. And Netnumber, thanks for helping us to interview some of the leaders in different areas from different perspectives. That includes Craig Downey, Craig Verdino, Kamal Lardi, Olivier Ribet, many others will come. But today we start with the CEO of a Netnumber, and for a very good reason, not just because Netnumber is a distinguished provider of secure intelligence in the industry, but that's a company itself that has changed radically and dramatically, I would say, in the last few years. I should say also to know that Steve did not want to be here interview, but I pushed for it. I thought it was a very good and fitting start of this series. So please welcome Steve Legge, the CEO of Netnumber. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Dario. Great to be here, and thank you very much for pushing me to come and talk to you. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's great, Steve, because, this all came from a breakfast meeting we had some time ago with Steve, where we started discussing some of the things that are happening and how important it is to manage all the change, and sometimes how we also drive a change as a telecom industry, or sometimes as a change is just driving us backwards. And back to Netnumber and what I announced before, Netnumber as a name has been around for 20 years, so there's a certain continuity, and people probably know that Netnumber has been there for a long time. But in 2022, June 2022, Netnumber actually itself went through a major revolution. It was split into 2 companies, one focusing on global data services and another one called Titanium now on software. That in itself is a good starting point for me. How do you come to the realizations that a number needs to be split into 2 different entities?
Yeah, so quite a bit of a story there, I think, and as we'll probably get to throughout the discussion here over the next 15 or 20 minutes, Netnumber is a really good example, I think, of it's a microcosm of the industry evolving. So Netnumber's always been an innovator. Our vision and the services and products that we've built over the couple of decades since the business was founded have always been unique in the industry and continue to be so. And just on that point, much of the brains trust is still involved at Netnumber. In fact, we've got a couple of people that were some of the original employees at the company. So. And it's really about people, and I think that'll be a bit of the theme that as we go through the various things that we talk about. The focus is really on the people, and the people make the business. But coming back to Netnumber, the business grew over, particularly since 2016. We've been around for quite a long time, but 2015, 2016. we started to see some of the investments pay off that we'd made around that 2013, 2014 timeframe, not long after I joined the company. And we were really gaining momentum from some of those strategies that we'd put in place. And as we got into that 21, 22 timeframe, it became apparent that there'd been growth in both parts of the business, both the software and product side, as well as in the data and data services part. And then we had external interest in both parts of the business. And the original shareholders had been in the business from the beginning of time, pretty well, so since 1999. So it had been a long ride for the shareholders. And it really was a time where, as the industry was changing and evolving, it made sense to look at probably giving the shareholders a return on their investment, as well as the two parts of the business really were at a point where, in terms of their own growth trajectories, it was best to separate them. And so what we decided to do was in 2021 was spin out the software asset, and we did that into a standalone business. It was later acquired by Lumine, I think, in early 2023. But after we spun out the software asset in 2022, Abry Partners, Boston-based private equity firm, acquired Netnumber at that point. So that was the 1st of July 2022. So we retained the Netnumber brand and the same people, and we continue on with our new ownership now of a couple of years with Abry, and it's been a great ride.
Well, you mentioned it just now, and your interest in change is not just for what we just heard, which is pretty eventful, different injections of capital, which is happening in the industry, the role of VC, the difference between software and data right now, which we are seeing and also happening in the different pace of growth that each one of them has got. But you mentioned people, and the change is about people and how important that is. So in this series of podcasts, we're going to be talking about empathy, adaptability, strategy implementation, team building, effectively. But what does it take to do that change? Including the one we've just done it, to merge a company from two different things. What's your recipe for that kind of change?
Well, it's interesting looking back over my career. I seem to have somehow managed to be involved at inflection points in each one of the industries. I've been fortunate to be able to transition across industry or different industries a number of times. And I'm not sure whether it was good luck or good timing or both, but I seem to hit on inflection points in each industry at each transition. And again, I think it's really about people, skills, and change management, and technology and the disruption that these fundamental and foundational technology shifts bring obviously impact people in a big way. Sometimes unfortunately in a negative fashion, and often in a positive fashion. So being able to look at how not only the business evolves, but how you need to evolve the skill sets and implement change management around that is really critical. And I think for this industry that we're in now, nothing looks like it did 10 years ago. In fact, you could probably argue nothing looks like it did 5 years ago. And there's no sign of this slowing down. So, being prepared is absolutely key. And the awareness of that change, not just as it's happening, but anticipating that change and being prepared for it is really fundamental.
So anticipating change and prepare for that. How do you turn that to the people around you? How do you make them aware of that? Is that something that you build over time? Is it something that you just do it by taking them into projects? How do you get the single vision of a company?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to, like I said, it's about people and how you go about your day to day in the business. And in the current Netnumber business, with the we went through some pretty significant change before we spun out the software asset, which we can probably talk about shortly, but in a little bit more detail. But in the current Netnumber business, find that we're a fully remote business now, and this part of the business was fully remote. In fact, much of Netnumber, the prior Netnumber, was largely remote for a long time. We're a global business. We had in the prior iteration of the business, we had some offices in Massachusetts, but that was for a development organization. But other than that, we were fully remote. And the new Netnumber, or the current Netnumber, is fully remote. So really, it's when you're remote, there's good things about that, and there's some challenges there, or there's a remote tax, as I like to call it sometimes, that you need to pay attention to. So values are really key, and values are something that I think, to be able to scale the business and be able to effectively manage change, coming back to a core set of values is fundamental. So at the current, I'll stop saying the current Netnumber at Netnumber, because it is Netnumber. We have 6 values, or core values, that we focus on. And I have to say, Dario, I think about these a lot. I feel like I do struggle sometimes to you get caught up in the day-to-day, obviously, a lot. There's a lot of travel. We're attending all of these MEF events, which are terrific. So I feel like sometimes that we don't spend enough time talking about values. So when I can internally, I talk about these and remind the leadership at all levels to make sure that all of us are focusing on these 6 core values. And I'll just quickly touch on some of them. So the first one, community, and these, each one of them are as important as each other, in my view. So community, respecting each other's time, and celebrating each other's success, and helping each other through what can be tough times that you sometimes have day to day. So community is important. Innovation, so encouraging, sharing ideas, continuous improvement, and testing new ideas. And again, coming back to community, supporting. Sometimes those ideas are great, and sometimes things don't work out. But that's what testing is all about. So innovation is really central to what we do. Professionalism, another one. We deliver on our promises, and we have an attitude in our communication that communicates professionalism. So that is something that we often talk about. Delivering on promises is absolutely key to us. So that's again foundational. Relentlessness is a favorite of mine. Never settling and getting the job done. So I think if you talk to any of the team, they'll tell you that that's something that I'm a big fan of. Being a self-starter, and typically, in this business, being remote, again, this is an important one. So a self-starter on all levels, including learning. Again, as the industry evolves, technology evolves, things are moving faster than ever anticipated. So that continuous learning and striving to learn and being a self-starter around that is really important. And finally, the 6th one is teamwork. And we exist as a team. We need to all be dependable and support each other. So those values, coming back and focusing on those core values, are really the cornerstone of really continuing to manage through what is continuous change in our industry. And then this issue of remote working. And I know COVID put a spotlight on this, but as I said, we were doing this a long time before COVID. So in some respects, our business continued on and didn't miss a beat from an internal perspective with COVID because we're already equipped to deal with this. We're already doing it. But one thing that remote working does is it creates, whilst it's great being able to find the right talent and employ talent wherever they are globally, that's really terrific. It provides a lot of flexibility. But on the downside, it does provide a challenge for particularly younger workers as you're looking to bring young people into the business, maybe straight out of school, second or third job. And it's really challenging there and for those people because they're not getting the in-office experience and the good things that come along with that. So again, coming back to the values, that's where values are key in dealing with some of the nuances that remote working brings.
Wow. So we covered a lot of ground in there, all very interesting things. And let me ask you even for more ground, because now I'm going to ask you not just the values that you apply now, but how have you personally, how have you changed? Because we can celebrate 10-year plus of Steve at Netnumber. So it's time for a bit of a, account of this period, this chapter. What's the difference from when you started? You started as if I'm not mistaken, as a corporate development, and then you moved to products, and now you're the CEO as well. What that trajectory? What was it? What can you bring back out of it?
Yeah. It was an interesting. I came over. I did work for Cisco Systems when I've been in the US for around 15 years, and I worked for Cisco for a little while. And I'd made the leap when I came to the US from. I'd never worked on the vendor side of the industry. So I worked at Cisco for a while, and I was recruited to Netnumber to come in, and it was a little bit back to the future for me. It was to come in and help build the business. It was still in startup mode, although it had been going for over a decade at that point. It really was genuinely in startup mode. There was one guy here doing who became the head of sales and a great friend. But Matt was running sales on his own, and I came in to help build that revenue engine, that front end of the business with Matt, and then through the period of that transitioned into various aspects of the business as we grew, and as we got those, and this comes back to some of those strategic investments that I mentioned earlier. I worked on the next most strategic thing. So as we got the revenue engine running and that up and running, we brought on some great partners and built the essentially that top of the funnel for the revenue engine. We then continued I moved into focusing on things like product and engineering and operations, and really looking to industrialize the business across those various aspects, and continued to do that. And it was a lot of fun. We basically, not long before the last couple of years before we spun out the software business, moving the entire product organization and engineering into cloud native solutions. And that was another major change in the way that, anticipating this change management, anticipating 5G, the move to cloud native solutions, the move to looking at, the different ways that data needed to be handled across the network at that time, and looking at how we not only evolved the product, but also the workforce, introduction of Agile and other things there. So, a lot of different moving parts. I enjoy building things, and I love building things that bring success. So each phase of this was a lot of fun for me, and that's what I really enjoy doing. So it was a natural transition each time. So I think in each one of the jobs that I've been involved in over over the period of my career. Every couple of years, I seem to transition into a different phase, and that was certainly the case here with Netnumber.
So let's talk about another transition of yours then, and another relevant one, because you were mentioning you used to work in the telecom service layer. And you spent 9 years at SP Telemedia in Australia. If you don't know SP Telemedia as a name, maybe you remember Seoul Telecom in Australia, which is now part of owned by TPG. Now, how was that? And that was fixed telecom. That was the kind of a Islam and everything else that came with it in those years. But how was that? How was setting up this competitor, this new startup, there? And out of SP Telemedia was all but a startup, I would say.
Yeah, that was a great ride. So we actually started the telecom business. There were two of us that were co-founders of that business, but we were, and I can touch on this maybe a little bit later, but we were coming out of the broadcast television industry. So we started the business back in it was the late 80s, I guess. Late 90s, 1998, 1999, that type of time frame. Off the back of the deregulation of telecoms in Australia. So the two of us started the business, and we were the first IP carrier in Australia, and we grew from two people to eventually we're over 1,100 people. We listed the company on the Australian Stock Exchange in the first 18 months of operation. And eventually, as you mentioned, we became the third largest carrier in Australia, behind Telstra and Optus at the time, and that business is now TPG. But we're an all IP carrier. We were both fixed line, broadband, and we did have an MVNO. We had an MVNO relationship with Optus, so we had a mobile offering as well. But being the first to market with IP gave us, again, it was a good timing. It was just hit on the right transition there with IP, and the market was ready, and the timing was really good. So we actually started the business selling to government and enterprise, and then that moved. Our first acquisition was a business that was set up for enterprise and wholesale. So we and that was another IP that was a company by the name of Communico. So that was our first acquisition, and then the second one was one by the name of B Digital, and that was a consumer play. So we ended up with really a full service national telecom infrastructure there, and it was great to see after I left that business in 2008 and moved to the US. And as you say, that's now TPG, and that team has gone on and done very nicely.
Wow, fantastic. Now, you mentioned it as well, your broadcasting years, because you came to Telecom via broadcasting. There is an incredible parallel, spectrum, technology, and so on behind it. But how different is or was at the time your NBN television experience to what it became later, your telecom days?
Yeah, I didn't actually mean to leave broadcasting. That idea of starting SP Telemedia was one to our goal. In fact, I mentioned that the two of us started the telecom business. The other guy was the effectively the CFO of the TV business, and I was the chief engineer, and we were moving the television operation to digital broadcasting, and we had quite an extensive analog network and TV. It still is, but more so back in that time, all over the air broadcasting in Australia, and we were moving the distribution network and the transmission network to digital, along with the studio. But we were looking to recover some money from the cost of defray the cost of the digital transition, we thought we'd build our distribution network a little larger than we needed for our own purposes and sell some capacity off to these aspirant telecom operators at the time, never realizing at the beginning that that was going to consume us and take us into the direction of a telco. But as you say, I started my career in broadcasting. It really is. I love the broadcast industry and still have a passion for it. I started in an operations role, which was pivotal to my thinking. I think in the way that I think about change. I learned a lot there about real-time live programming, no room for error. Worked on a lot of different live productions outside broadcasts. Then I moved into engineering and then learnt the foundational parts there. I was my first big project, which was a signal of things to come, was to move us from analog videotape based system to digital video servers, and that was in the early 90s. So that really set the stage, I think, for the rest of my career. I keep finding these transitions, unfortunately or fortunately. I learned a lot from that. And then again, managing change through that, those times in that business, broadcasting, as well as other, radio and press, obviously have all transitioned significantly over that time. And coming back to telecom, that's where I think the parallel is here. We've got a unique set of things happening in this industry now, all coming together at the same time. And it's we've seen a lot of change. I think we're at the beginning of the change.
Oh, yes, we are at the beginning of something that will keep on changing as well. I would mention something else what we're not covering so far, which is not relevant to any of these, but you like engineering so much, but you're still doing some of it with your car interest, isn't it? Yeah. You're building cars just when you have some free time on all of that. You're just building car from ground zero up. In terms of time, I'm not going to ask you anything else about cars because there isn't, but I will squeeze in the last final questions instead about mobile and telecoms, because we talked about change. We talked about changes that are happening in Netnumber, that are happening in terms of the way we manage change itself. But what's your vision? What's your perspective? What's happening next? But back to the perspective name of his series. So, what is your expectations for mobile in the next few years? What's going to happen?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So telecom's a broad term, right? Which part? So I think there's a couple of things. First of all, technical talent. It comes back to the people. All of these things are driven by people, and the transition in skills. I think just the rate of change here is amazing, and continues to pick up. So technical talent, that's a big one. Infrastructure and architecture, looking at data centers, looking at transport and RAN, this shift there, even with data centers, this shift with compute away from white box servers, particularly now looking at AI and the need for specific compute there. There's a lot of upheaval there for things that are relatively recent already getting transitioned. Transport, the move more and more optical, getting pushed further to the edge of the network, and the significant changes we're seeing in RAN, and the I think this concept of cross-platform connectivity. We're seeing RAN shift from macro to micro, the rise of private networks, and the changes to spectrum that we'll see to support this continuing evolution of higher density distributed networks. So I think on the mobile side, this is just a continuation from macro to micro, and we're seeing that change in technology. And then we come to something probably closer to what you and I deal with more on a day-to-day basis, this issue of trust and identity. alongside all of that. So whilst you've got this layer of architecture and infrastructure, then you've got the this issue of trust and identity, and this is an area where it just continues to pick up pace and evolve and evolve in a it's necessary, but it's it's something that it'll be I think in 5 years' time this will look very different to the way it is today. But the bottom line, at least from my perspective, is navigating in all of these transitions that I've been involved with in the past. You're navigating all of these in a way that's sustainable for the business is key. So making sure that as we evolve, we do so in a way that's sustainable and profitable for the business. So that's really the bottom line.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. And we end on the bottom line, also important. We talk about change, but then coming back to what is driving all of us in the end. Well, thanks, Steve. I think double thanks for the lovely chat that we just had, but also for being the sponsor and believing in what we're doing and believing in sharing that education. We talk about how people need to challenge ourselves and kind of bring to the next level. We hope we're going to do a bit of that just here. But today you've helped us to tell us about your challenges, how you overcome that, and what you're doing at Netnumber. So thank you. Any final words before we officially wrap up this Netnumber series, episode number one?
No, Dario, thanks again for the opportunity. Absolute pleasure to support the initiative. I think the message is really important. It is something that this is the disruption just will continue. So this is I think fundamentally a very important set of discussions and topic for everyone to hear about.
Well, in that case, thank you very much. Here it is. Thanks for Steve Legge, the CEO of Netnumber, and the first episode of our series of Perspective Change in Telecom. Thank you very much, and to the next time.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. This episode was part of a 6-part series on managing change in the digital era, supported by Netnumber, the source of high-quality data on phone number portability, fraud prevention data, and signaling and routing control. Stay tuned, stay connected, and join us next for more insights and discussions.